Today we're going to talk about credibility. Now, what I often say that one of the best things about my job is that I get to work with highly intelligent people. Coaches are in the main highly intelligent people. And one of the worst things about my job is that I get to work with highly intelligent people. And part of the reason that I say it's one of the worst aspects of my job, which is mostly tongue in cheek, there are a couple of reasons why I say it. Number one is that we tend to approach marketing and business building with a knower's mind and not a learner's mind. And that's really interesting because as coaches, we are professionally curious. And yet, for some reason, we think we know when we're talking about client acquisition and marketing, we think we know based on an opinion, a feeling. And we simply would not do that with any other professional skill, but we absolutely do it with marketing and client acquisition. So all of the work that goes around marketing. And the main way that we have this knower's mind is our massive resistance to this idea of having a focus. So it feels, to people who do not know how marketing works, it feels like the right thing to do when you're starting a coaching business and you want to find clients is let as many different people as you can possibly think of know that you have a business. Be open to all opportunities and do the very opposite of focusing. And whilst that feels like the right thing to do, it's 180 degrees the wrong direction. It is the absolute opposite of what marketing is, because all effective marketing is focused. All of it. There is no such thing as unfocused marketing, which is really interesting, isn't it? When we have this feeling, this knower's mind, but I know, I don't want to focus because think of all the opportunities I'm going to lose. Think of the massive number of people that are out there who I could help. Think of all of that. And if I choose to focus, I'm closing doors that should remain open. So really direct Northern woman hard truth thing coming in here. How's that going for you so far? Where are all these opportunities that you're waiting for? Because if they existed, you would have found them, or they would have found you. And they haven't in most cases. So maybe you could have a learner's mind when it comes to talking about coaching and client acquisition. And I would particularly encourage you to have a learner's mind around the topic I want to talk about today, because it's one that I get a lot of pushback from people, from coaches, because it feels counterintuitive. I was going to say wrong, but no, it feels counterintuitive. So what I want to talk about today is credibility. And it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing because our credibility within our community, as in within the coaching world, and our credibility within our clients' world are very different things, and they're built on very different foundations for the vast majority of us. So if I go back to my analogy of having a weighing scale, and that all businesses, whatever they produce or deliver, all businesses need two skill sets in equal measure to be successful. On one side, you have your product or service. So for us, it's our coaching, our delivery skills. And on the other side of the scale sit the skills you need to create the opportunity to do the delivery or to sell the product. And on this side of our scale, this is where our credibility sits within our community. So whether we are the lowliest, just qualified ACC, if we're talking ICF qualifications, or we have a PhD in coaching, all of those qualifications sit on this one side, and every other delivery tool that we have in our toolbox also sits on this side. So we might have Gestalt, we might have transactional analysis, we might have NLP, we might, every practitioner certificates, personality profiling tools, facilitation qualification, they all sit on this one side of the scale. And this is where our professional credibility, so our credibility within our profession comes from. Because on this side, we all know what we do. And on this side, we all recognize each other's qualifications. And so on this side, we know at a glance if somebody is an MCC, they've got 2,500 hours of logged coaching, so 2,500 plus hours of coaching under their belts. And that engenders respect from us because we know how hard they've worked, we know all the training they've gone through, our professional credibility is strong on this side. However, for the vast majority of us, those qualifications and that credibility is not the same on this side. And the reason that I say the vast majority of us is that some of us, particularly those who are associate coaches or employed coaches, may have to have a particular qualification in order to get that associate or employed role. And so for those very small few, and very occasionally I've come across a coach whose potential clients want a particular qualification, thinking public sector in the UK, have an understanding of our qualifications. But for the rest of us, our credibility on the client acquisition side does not come from our professional qualifications at all, because most people on this side, the huge majority of people on this side, have no idea what we do. So, at worst, they think they know and they're wrong. So if you don't know what somebody does, knowing they have a bunch of post-nominals does not add to your knowledge and understanding of what they do. In fact, it muddies it a bit, really, doesn't it? And so on this side, our credibility comes from something different. Now, let me just take a little step back. When we are delivering our coaching, everything we do is client-focused. It's all about the client sitting in front of us. When we market our coaching business, it is still focused, client-focused. But instead of focusing on the client in front of us, it's focused on the clients that we understand the most and are able to reach the easiest. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're starting to feel your knowers mind kicking in and thinking that this isn't right, can I offer you a word of advice? Take that as data. Why am I resisting this? Why do I not agree with this? What is it about this that feels wrong to me? Because what I'm telling you is fact. This is how marketing works. It's fact. In order to be able to market to somebody effectively, you need to, number one, know who they are, because if you don't know who they are, you don't know where they are. And number two, you need to know what it is that they're grappling with that working with you can help resolve. When you know those two things in a lot of detail, you can market to them. When you know who they are, you know where they are. When you know what they're grappling with, you can describe it to them. But what's really important is that you can describe it to them in their own context. So a really good example of this, one of our mentors, Helen Clare, her business is called Menopause in Schools. Now, she's a menopause coach and she works in schools. Arguably, you could say just over 50% of the population will go through menopause if they live long enough. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of menopause coaches. So why is Helen focusing on menopause in schools? Why has she done that? Well, she's done it because she understands that context. She has worked in schools both as a teacher and as an external supplier. She knows how schools operate. She knows how menopause symptoms can derail somebody working in a school environment in a different way than they would if they worked somewhere else. And she can talk about that. And in talking about to that kind of person, so her ideal client avatar, her potential client is a senior leader in a school who is a woman. Her client experiences menopause in that context with the problems that that context contains. Now, somebody experiencing menopause symptoms in a busy secondary school is in a very different context than, for example, somebody experiencing menopause symptoms when they are a freelance computer programmer who works from home. Those are very different contexts. Now, marketing to someone is about being able to describe the situation that they're struggling with in their own words. So in the words of the teacher or the freelance computer programmer, but also in their own context. And when I say context, I don't just mean schools, I mean the lives of the people who work there. So, you know, how the rhythm of the year goes for those people. And being able to describe the problem in that context, in the correct context, is what makes people go, she gets it, he gets it. They understand, they know how bad this is, they know how difficult it is. They're talking about me. And that's what we're looking for. Because until somebody recognizes that you are talking about them and the problem that they are struggling with, they're not looking for a coach. The vast majority of people are not looking for a coach. And the reason they're not looking for a coach is because they don't know what we do. And so they have no understanding of situations in which we could help them. Now, think about that for a moment. If we were lawyers, accountants, doctors, psychotherapists, people know what we do. And that means that they know when they need our services. And with coaching, that's not true. That is massive. So rather than marketing ourselves as coaches, because nobody cares on this side, nobody cares. We care on this side, we care very much indeed on this side, but on this side, nobody cares. So instead of trying to talk about ourselves and our qualifications and how many coaching hours we have and how we're humbled by our renewal of our accreditation or our next accreditation or all of the things that are interesting to people on this side, these are not our potential clients. We need to stop talking about us and start talking about the client and about the situation they're in and about the context that they're struggling in, not just the problem, but the context of the problem. So how do you choose where to focus? You need to have had, and I can feel the pushback already, you need to have had either lived experience of that context or a front row seat to the life of somebody with lived experience. Either of those two things is fine, but you need to know that context inside out. You even need to know the context if the coaching that you want to do has nothing to do with work. When I say context, I mean industry, profession, or sector, down to job title or a bunch of job titles. So even if let's say you're a parenting coach and you want to work with parents, my first question to you would be, which parents? Where are you going to find these parents if you are being vague enough that you're saying parents? Because parenting coach feels like, look, there are so many people who are parents, I can help so many people, but they don't know what you do. They don't know what you do. They're not looking for you, and they won't find you unless you make yourself visible. To make yourself visible, you need to choose a context. I call it a who. Because yes, all parents might benefit from, but if you're wanting to talk about somebody with a particular struggle around parenting, if they are a police officer or if they are, let's say, a solicitor, then having a child, for example, in trouble with the law carries very different connotations than if they are a computer programmer, let's pluck the, or a teacher. It's still a problem. Obviously, it's still a problem, but there's a different context for that problem. And it's about understanding this context. It's being able to use the language of the people in your chosen sector and being able to understand the implications and the impact of the problem that you want to coach around, and being able to describe it really clearly using their own words, not using coach speak. Our clients don't need to know we can hold space for them, because they don't even know what that means. Our clients need a practical, pragmatic understanding of who we help and what we help them with, to be able to access the fact that we can help them at all. Now, part of the pushback I get from coaches is they'll say to me, well, I know from experience that I coach much better when I coach somebody who I don't know anything about. Well, that's great. And now you need to learn the skill of being that good a coach to somebody where you do know something about their background. You only know broadly the context of their background. You don't know how it's affecting them as an individual human being. But because of marketing, you do have a very good idea of that context. And it's your job as a professional coach to leave that aside and to coach them as well as you would coach somebody that you don't know anything about. And if you don't feel that you can do that, then you need to be an associate coach or an employed coach, because that's the only way you're going to get a stream of clients about whom you know absolutely nothing. So credibility with our clients comes on this side of the scale, and it comes from choosing an industry sector or profession in which we have either lived experience or a front row seat to the life of somebody who has lived experience. And if you are strongly disagreeing, and you may be taking it as data, as I've suggested that you do, but if you're strongly disagreeing, can I invite you to come and learn more about why I'm saying this? I run a free challenge 3 times a year, and the next time is the 7th of September. It runs from the 7th to the 10th of September. Doesn't mean you've got to take 4 days off work. It's reasonably light touch, and it's about challenging your thinking. And we're coaches. We love a bit of challenge thinking, don't we? We love a bit of reframing and challenge thinking. And I can absolutely promise you that not only is it really good fun, but also you will have your thinking challenged, and you will have a massive light bulb moment. I'll put the link to join us around this video. And I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about why coaches avoid the perfect niche for them. I'll see you tomorrow.